beginning Satsang session of 9th May 1979.
The question is, what's the difference between active Brahman and passive Brahman? Is that right? Brahman is what in Western philosophy is called the absolute. But with this difference, that this absolute not only transcends everything, but it also contains everything. In philosophical terms, it is described as the absolute, which includes all relatives. In Brahman, this universe, various worlds, they are also included. There is nothing outside of Brahman. That is Brahman, the reality that includes everything, that exceeds everything, that pervades everything. There is an aspect which impartially supports everything. Whatever movements go on, it supports them. You may call it the impersonal Brahman, not engaged in any activity, but impassively supporting everything. That is called passive Brahman. Active Brahman is that aspect which is dynamic, actively engaged in furthering the manifestation of what is contained in the being of Brahman. That aspect which throws itself as consciousness, as force, as beauty, as delight, increases them, that is active Brahman. Active Brahman, as the term indicates, is the dynamic and the personal side of Brahman. Just as the passive Brahman indicates the impersonal, supportive aspect of Brahman. And what is true of Brahman is true of all of us, who are all miniature Brahmans. Each one of us has a passive side and an active side. Passive side we experience when we just carry on without doing anything of our will. Let things happen. But when we exert ourselves, assert our will, that is the active side of us. Is that clear?
Is this passive Brahman is the same as the self?
As the?
Self.
I wouldn't say that. Self is Atman. But that Atman also has its two sides. Supporting from behind and also working through its power, Atma Shakti it is called. So you may say Atman is Brahman itself in the scheme of the universe. That is why they say Atman and Brahman are same. So what is true of Brahman is also true of Atman. Atman is not only passive but also active.
What is where in the scheme that the Purushottama comes in?
Purushottama.
Yes.
The Gita is the best authority on this baffling problem. It analyzes existence. First, what it calls the Kshara Brahman, the mutable Brahman, that is, that poise of the soul, of the self, of the divine reality, which is subject to time and space, constant mutability, constant change. This is called the Kshara Brahman or the moving Brahman, the mutable Brahman. Above that, supporting that from above, is the immutable Brahman, impersonal, doesn't interfere, doesn't change, but supports on its bosom all the movement that goes on. It is only as long as we are in ignorance that we oppose the mutable to the immutable. Once we realize the unity of consciousness, both the mutable and the immutable are realized to be two sides of the same truth. And this reconciliation is effected in the third reality, which is above both, and that is the Supreme Purusha, Purushottama, who, when he manifests, puts out these two poises, the impersonal and the personal, the passive and the active. The key lies there, what you may call the transcendent Purusha. He is the supreme Purushottama.
He is one with the active and the passive.
Both are inherent in him.
Yes. That's right.
Is this Purushottama same as the absolute or Parabrahman?
No, absolute and Parabrahman, they are not a person. Purushottama is the person. You understand? Of whom all personalities are emanations. But Parabrahman or the Absolute, there is no he or she. Purushottama is a super he, super person. What I think the Christians call Lord, the Supreme Lord, who is above everything, manifestation and non-manifestation.
But Satchit Anand is above Purushottam.
Satchidananda, it is another category. You may say, when Satchidananda focuses itself for purposes of manifestation. Centralizes, it becomes a Purusha. Satchidananda as Purusha, you may say, is Purushottama.
What is the relation between this impersonal absolute and the supreme person?
Purushottama exists only as far as manifestation is concerned, the world is concerned, the universe. Otherwise it becomes again Satchidananda.
It is said that hell is also filled with good intentions. If that be the case, sons and sins are synonymous. And how to get rid of this entanglement and from attachment, slowly we can move to detachment.
It is more or less a psychological operation. Begins with refusal to assert one's claim over people or things. And detachment means de-linking yourself and refusing to be involved in things. So unless first you cut off the sense of possession, relation, detachment is not possible. It is a long process, and not sannyasa but tyaga is the solution, as the Gita points out.
When compared to the life of Kaviganta Navritni, it comes out always with him. I am the great tunnel by Muruganar, who deserted his wife and occupied ashram. Is it not a former better?
Of course, I do think abandonment of those who responsibility for whom you have once accepted, that is totally unspiritual. You may explain in any way Vedanta, but once you accept the responsibility, you can't give it away, give it up, or abandon it for whatever reason. Of course, there is such a thing as giving up a lesser dharma in the interest of a higher dharma. But there is also a way to reconcile both the lower and the higher dharma. And the ideal of perfection, fulfillment, insists that we reject nothing but elevate everything. And I have found in life many householders more highly developed spiritually and more reflecting God consciousness than people who have renounced, people who have, put on the robes. That is no guarantee. We have to be honest to ourselves and find out how far we are using high-sounding names to escape our responsibilities, and how far it is a call of God that makes it imperative to give up something. There can be no general rules or laws in these matters. But as a rule, ways should be and can be found to carry both the lower and the higher, so-called lower and the higher. When Brahman Maharshi came down from the hills, he was a sannyasi. He was not an initiated sannyasi, but he was, that what is called Jivan Mukta, super social. So when his mother came, he didn't drive her out. He didn't say that I can't have relations with you, I'm a spiritual man, and old relation I can't recognize. He took the responsibility. And at the dying hour, he sat near her for hours and hours with his hand on her head. And only when she reached the final stage of some kind of liberation, he went out. Now, this has been cited by many as a confusion of dharmas, Varna Sankara. Just as he is having a samadhi of hers, Matrabhuteshwar, is looked upon by the orthodox Mathadhipatis as Bhrashtachar. They said we can't recognize this because he has allowed this, particularly pujas are going on. It is contrary to all Shastra. But they forget that after all, what is a Shastra? Shastra is the way a God-man speaks and acts. It's not a Pandit who is writing. There are people, for instance, now there is a call of the country. Just let us face the problem. There is a call, and you are impelled to go and sacrifice yourself to the country. Your wife, children are there. And they ask, what about us? This is a ticklish problem. What am I to do? I am not going there to get liberation. Most likely I die there, facing the bullet. So for that, in the Mahabharata there is that verse. Step by step, you have to give up this, you have to give up this, you have to give up this. Last they say, Atmartham Prativitejet. So these are things which one has to decide on the strength. Lord Krishna says, when you are in doubt, confusion of dharmas, you surrender all dharmas to me and I shall deliver. To the extent you are sincere and really leave the problem in the hands of God, what is right for you, you will be guided. Apparently it may be wrong from the social point of view, but the divine law exceeds every human law. So such situations one has to allow oneself to be guided by the divine. It is easy for man to deceive himself.